Welcome to the show, Gearheads. We just watched Max Verstappen win a fantastic race, action-packed, leaders changing, different people leading the race, but Max Verstappen finds a way to pull it out with all the safety cars, all the rain, the sun, the tires. Really amazing job by Max Verstappen. This is John Massengale in the studio in Austin, Texas, and I'm joined by Bob Varsha. Bob, I have about 4 pages of notes. I don't know about you.
We've only done about 500 shows, so you'd think I'd know when to unmute myself, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, before the race, we said, if the rain comes and goes, it's going to really throw up some surprises. And it gave us a really varied and interesting race with, I think, 5 different leaders. I lost track. Lots of passing, a lot of very tough decisions, snap decisions made. At the beginning, when the 2 Haas cars were the only ones to go out on the full wet tires, Chris Medland said, I don't know if that's going to work. I said, I thought it would. And I think we were both kind of right because those guys came rocketing up the running order. And then the rain stopped, the track began to dry out, and they fell back down again. But they did finish 11th and 12th. So, America's team was solidly in the midfield on a day that saw both Ferraris drop out, both Williams drop out. Sergio Perez dropped out in one of the Red Bulls. So it was a pretty attrition-heavy race when it came to the stars of the show. Big setback for Ferrari today because McLaren had a good day, Mercedes had a good day, and Max Verstappen wins again.
Yeah, it's funny. You're talking about the Haas and Magnussen coming up. He made it all the way up to P4. And then I think what happened is he dove into the pits without getting instructions to do that.
Yeah.
And they were not ready, and it ended up to be like a 9-second pit stop. And I think that probably lost him, at least 2 or 3 positions. So, yeah.
Yeah, plenty of blame to go around there. He should have told them, I'm coming. I need intermediates. They should have known. I mean, there's all this information is in front of them. They should have seen, at least when he hit the pit lane, that they needed the intermediates out there. So yeah, that was a gaffe that they wound up paying for. But still, they had pace. They ran right at the edge of the point.
Yeah.
And hopefully, they'll come forward again. They did not lose ground to the team in front of them, Williams, in the championship, and not much ground to Alpine, with whom they came in tied in the constructors' standings. So. Yep. Some lessons are harder than others. I mean, you could make a mistake like that on a pit stop, which teams have done before. Daniel Ricciardo lost a victory at Monaco once because the Red Bull team were not ready for him. So, this kind of thing can happen.
Yeah, and I have to say the most disappointing race has to go to Ferrari. I mean, both cars retired, and, I said it in the beginning of the show, at the beginning of the pre-show, that they had an opportunity with Checo qualifying so far down, and they're so close to Red Bull. And now Max wins again. Both cars DNF for Ferrari. The gap just widens again. It's just really disappointing for them.
Yeah. Let me correct myself. I finally got my final results up on my screen, and Alpine scored 9th with Gasly, 10th with Ocon. Good drives from both of those guys who started way back. So they pick up 3 points. That breaks the tie and drops Haas into 9th place, I guess, in the championship.
Ooh, yeah, that is interesting. And yeah, I didn't realize that. Daniel Ricciardo, he had this penalty at the very start. Did you see the replay? It was so close. They gave him a jump start penalty, but it was so close.
Well, they didn't give a jump start. They gave him a false start.
Yeah, sorry, false start.
I don't know if that's a distinction in the rules, because it looked to me like it did to you, I think, that he didn't jump the start, but he may have been improperly lined up in his grid box or something. But, whatever
maybe
it was.
So, yeah, we'll get clarification here, hopefully.
Yeah, maybe Chris will know more about that when we finally get him up and running. Interesting day all around. I think McLaren will go away thinking, they could have had more, running 2-3 at one point, or 1-3, or whatever they had. A lot of team infighting between teammates in the late going. Piastri and Norris, Russell and Hamilton. There
Yep.
was some real toe-to-toe slugging going on in the closing laps of that race, which is interesting.
Yeah, and let's not forget first podium of the year for Mercedes,
For
which is
Mercedes,
yeah,
yeah.
really encouraging, right? I mean, we saw the speed. We thought Russell might win this race when from pole,
Yep.
but got to be happy with getting a podium now.
Yeah, we had James Allison, the technical boss at Mercedes, on our post-qualifying show yesterday, and he said, it's not a silver bullet, it's not big steps, but we've been making progressive, smaller steps and getting better and better, and we never doubted that, we'd have a breakthrough at some point, and it looks like this is the weekend where whatever it is they're doing with the car came right.
Yeah, and you talk about Lando Norris and McLaren. I was listening to Lando afterwards, and he said it. He said he had a little advantage at Miami with his safety car, and he had a little disadvantage today. So he seemed happy with what happened, and that's the way racing goes. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't, and you get those little advantages sometimes, and sometimes not.
Oh man, with the conditions out there today, and every driver had to have that laser focus, even more than in a completely dry race anywhere. I think the universal feeling among the drivers was, "Whew, I'm glad I got through that."
Yeah.
Without without throwing it in the trees. Yeah, that was a day when if you came away with points, you're plenty happy.
I tell you what, disappointing for Logan Sargent. It's funny. He had another race performance where he didn't do well, where he had another good weekend up to the race and then another disappointing race.
Yeah. Well, we talked about before going in about we really didn't know what some of the younger guys like Piastri and Logan Sargent would do in a wet race. We hadn't had one at all this year, and I can't remember where the last one was last year. But these guys, they don't test in wet conditions. They don't, they have no real, data bank of knowledge about what the car is going to feel like when the grip conditions are that crummy, whether you're on the full wet or the intermediate tire, or what it's like when you go to the crossover point in lap time and you put on a slick tire in damp conditions. So yeah, you gotta feel for those guys. Now we know more. I think Logan Sargent was a bit caught out. And even some of the veteran guys, were slithering all over the place. Carlos Sainz threw it off the road at one point. Yeah, it was an all skate, I think they say in hockey land.
Yeah, but how many times did we see somebody, cut through a corner, go up on a curb, lose traction, go? It was just constant over and over. And I mean, it was actually really fun to watch. You were on the edge of your seat the entire time. And I see Chris Medland has joined us. How are you, Mr. Medland?
I'm all right. I've come back out to brave the potential weather because it looks like it might rain again in a sec. It's just been spitting. That's all I've been talking about today, isn't it?
Well, I tell you what, those were some pretty spectacular cloud formations. I'm a bit of a weather junkie. And anybody who listened to me and Hobbs and Matcha during the ESPN and then the speed years, we were always, look at the sky, look at those clouds, what's going to happen? And, sometimes it does, but that was pretty spectacular cloud formations today over Montreal.
It got pretty kind of, if you looked down towards turn one from the start-finish line, that's where you would have seen it on the pictures, I think, as well, how dark it got. It skirted the track. It actually does mean, I will give a little bit of credit to Ferrari, because the decision they were trying to make with Leclerc when they put him on those slicks just before rain hit, up to that point, it looked like it was going to be a heavy, heavy downpour, and it made no sense. But then just the clouds just looked like they were going to miss at the edge, and it was like, okay, it might be a lap or two, and then you might not get too much rain. So they gambled on that. It didn't pay off. It did rain enough that you needed to get onto the inters, but it was closer than maybe it had looked from a few minutes before. So I do actually understand why they took that risk.
Man, there were so many amazing moments, though. I'm just looking through my notes. I was like, when at one point, Albon sliced through Daniel Ricciardo and Ocon. I don't know, part of that just looked like he didn't have any other place to go, but it was a brilliant pass between the three of them. I mean, there were so many moments like that in this race.
And Martin Brundle, who I expected to give him a little stick about it, said, no, that's what he had to do. And he did it beautifully. I mean, he looked like a high-end restaurant valet there driving between the traffic. And didn't hit anybody and made the double pass. And that was pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah, very, very strong move, that one. I was very impressed. I'm actually watching him now in the TV pen. He's having a bit of a laugh chatting to Daniel Ricciardo, so it doesn't seem too upset that his race was over. But I'll see if I can grab him afterwards, because I want to ask him about that move. That was a highlight, wasn't it? I mean, just right on the edge.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Slicing right through there. I did like the radio message on lap 65 from Ricciardo from Team Radio when it said, "You are allowed to fight Yuki." Then Yuki took care of it himself, but I did like the fact that they let him race. Or we're going to let him race.
It was good to see. It's how it should be, isn't it, really? But, because it's late in the race, normally they would call it off, but I think it was just too tight between all these cars. And Mercedes did the same with Russell and Hamilton.
Yeah.
Fair play to them for that one. So I might even see if we can speak to someone from Mercedes in a little bit. In fact, let's try that, shall we? Let's go. I'm going to run to the other end of the paddock, and see if Toto Wolff's around. We spoke to James Allison on yesterday's show, and that was very insightful. He said that he said he'd take a win in any conditions, and they got close. They were in the fight, but I feel like the conditions being so variable just, I don't want to say it helped Verstappen, because there were spells that he really didn't have the quick, but it's just about, I think, when the driver's so confident they've had much success.
Yeah, we're losing you, Chris, here for just a second.
To them a little bit.
We lost you a little bit there, but I wrote down some notes about while you were making your way down there. But I wrote down some notes about Tsunoda. We said Tsunoda, and they were free to fight, but of course then Tsunoda crashed out of the race and almost got hit by Magnussen. That was really a high-speed potential crazy crash there. But coming in today, he had points in 3 races in a row in 5 out of 6. And it was a shame to see that. I really kind of thought it'd be nice for he and Ricciardo to battle there for those final points.
Yeah, that takes you back to driving school when they tell you if you're on a wet surface, hold the wheel straight. Don't try to turn. As you turn, you're going to spin the car, and that's exactly what he did. Sometimes the easiest things are the hardest to remember.
Yeah. What about the tire strategy from Mercedes there, Bob? At the end there with Hamilton going on the hard
I think they were looking for something. I think they thought they had a lot of latent potential there in Hamilton, who was so quick the rest of the weekend that they thought, let's try something. And it was just such a jump ball in terms of tire strategy all the while. And some cars looked so rock solid in the conditions, while others looked pretty skittish the whole day. The function of the car setup, no doubt. Credit Mercedes for trying something.
Yeah, for sure. Chris, how's your location? We'll check your mic too.
Oh, well, I've made it down to Mercedes, but it's funny. It's like everyone has the same idea, isn't it? So Toto's just waiting to go on Sky Sports. He's stood in a line up there, but Fred Vasseur's not too far away, and he's doing fewer interviews. So might see if I can grab a word with him in a second and kind of get the Ferrari debrief.
Yeah. If you want to see dark clouds, look at Fred Vasseur right now. I'm sure he's got what do the British say? A face like thunder.
That's appropriate for today.
Mm-hmm.
You're dropping, Chris, pretty bad, actually.
It'd be so good to hear Chris.
When he wins.
I know. Let me start doing a starting lineup, and I'm sure Chris's mic will come good.
That's like exactly right. Exactly right. But yeah.
A bit of that might be if you can. That might be a bit to do with the weather.
Oh, Chris, we lost you, buddy. It's the last couple tries you've tried have not worked. So just looking through my notes again, Bob, on the lap 69, almost right there in the race, a bold pass from Russell on the inside of Hamilton for P3. That actually was really, you saw the car wiggle. He lost traction a little bit, and
Yep.
that was, he could have easily ended up out of the race.
Yeah, and that was on a damp curb.
Yeah.
So that was a ballsy move, particularly between teammates. But he had the position and kept it. And a thought just popped into my head, proving that animals are sometimes smarter than people. We didn't see one marmot out there in the rain watching the cars go by like we did in practice and qualifying.
It's true. It's very true. I was telling somebody about it, and they're like, "What's the deal with that?" And I said, "Well, they're just native to the area." And I said, "It's all fun and games, and we all laugh until one of these times, and every year of car is different, but one of these cars hit one of those animals at 200 miles an hour. I don't know exactly what's going to happen."
Oh, it's happened plenty of times. I can remember a number of times we had contact with some of the native species on Ile Notre Dame. And yeah, it's a mess, no doubt about it.
Yeah, well, I kept thinking about the current downforce era cars, how that might, it could be dangerous for the car too. But
yeah,
I was just looking at gains and losses. Verstappen up 1, Norris up 1, Russell down 2, Hamilton up 3, Piastri down 1, Alonso started finished where he started at 6, Stroll up 2, Ricardo down 3, and you can probably count all of that into that 5-second penalty. Gasly up 6 and Ocon up 8. That is, there's a lot of attrition between them, probably between all that, but still, that's impressive. Are
the points official yet?
I don't know if they are yet. I haven't even checked yet, but
no, they're not. No, I see they're not. Okay, carry on.
I was just looking through some social media posts, and I see George Russell and a tweet from the Mercedes team, and it says, "Finally made it into the podcast." In other words, into the cool down room and made it into the podium.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Into the green room, get a chance to watch the highlights.
Yeah, you know what? That could be one of the most exciting things of this weekend. The fact that we have another team, as I'm saying it, I'm thinking how badly Ferrari fell off. But let's just say, assuming that Ferrari's still in this hunt, which I'm sure they are, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, all battling with Red Bull. And right there, I mean, it's not like that. In fact, you said it earlier in the year, Bob, and it really, I know this has been said about drivers from time to time, but you said Max Verstappen could be worth several tenths all by himself. So maybe that's the difference between those 4 teams right now.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair to say, considering Max's success. He's just that little bit better in a car that suits him well. And I mean, that's how you become world champion, by being that little bit better week in and week out.
All right, guys. Sorry, Bob, I didn't mean to cut you off. Thought you were done. We need to get in a break here. I've run past, so stick with us through the break. You're listening to Speed City F1, back after these messages. All right, we're still live on YouTube and Facebook. Let's see what the boys are saying. Andy P says the sport decided to pay us back from Monaco. Yeah, that was fun. It was an intense race to watch. I agree. TW says pretty damn exciting.
Andy, Monaco was a good race.
Yeah, well, yeah.
All day.
Yep. TW says pretty damn exciting. If you ask me, Albon early pass, Haas at the start. Mm-hmm. Yep. Kevin Kelly, that was crazy.
Yeah. Am I back with you, chaps? Can you
yes,
hear me clearly at all?
Yeah, we can hear you really good. Yeah, that's good. Good point. Let's test your mic. See how it sounds.
We'll see how long that lasts. I haven't actually really moved.
Yeah, you sounded a little bit of a drop just then, but give us another check. Or are you?
Yeah. I'm still here, still in the same spot by Ferrari, parked between Fred Varsha and Toto Wolff, just not at the head of either queue.
Here's a nice comment from David Lawrence. I feel Logan Sargent is in the wrong era of F1. If Logan was coming up in the late early 90s, given testing time, feels he'd be much better off. Just my 2 cents. So
I think that's fair to say.
I mean, that is so true.
Have a phone number?
True, but wouldn't many drivers be better off if they had that opportunity?
I know. I was just about. Yeah, it's true.
Sure.
but I think some might benefit
yeah,
more than
agree.
others.
I do agree. It's tough on him.
Yep.
Yeah, that is true.
That's a good point, Bob. I'll give out the phone number too.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what else on YouTube. Okay.
Well, I do love bathing suit weather.
What's that, Bob? You love bathing suit weather?
I love bathing suit weather. It's 90 here in Atlanta today, and I can look down on all the other high-rise complex swimming pools.
All right, coming back.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
CrowdStrike presents Driven in 60. As the official cybersecurity partner of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team, CrowdStrike protects against cyber threats so the team can focus on what matters, their next win. The revolutionary, cloud-native, unified CrowdStrike Falcon platform harnesses the speed and power of the cloud to protect and defend organizations of all sizes against increasingly complex threats, stopping breaches before they happen. Because on and off the track, the stakes couldn't be higher. A split second can make the difference between victory and defeat. When every second counts, protection shouldn't slow you down. It should fuel your momentum. CrowdStrike, protection at every turn. To learn more and to try CrowdStrike Falcon free today, visit crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, we are basking in the exciting race that was the Formula One Canadian Grand Prix. If you want to give us a call, the number's 512-643-5483. You can call and let us know what you thought of the race, 512-643-5483. And let's check back in with Chris. I hear his mic lighting up out in Montreal. Chris, let's give your mic a check.
Yeah, it's hopefully working. It doesn't have anyone to speak to right now, though, because I'm in that really awkward position where we might hear from Toto Wolff, we might hear from Varsha, or we might hear from neither, or both. So I'm telling you that all my cards are on the table. I don't know if I'm going to win this hand or not.
Well, your mic sounds good, so let's see what you get. But well, Chris, we had a little time before you jumped on, but tell us what you thought of the race. I mean, anything jump out besides the things we've touched on?
It was a great race. I know I sort of pointed out how I do feel that maybe Verstappen seems to have a calmness where he brings it, lets the race into that race. That is maybe something more exciting in terms of the likelihood of having fewer races where there's a one dominant team, that there's always a challenger. There's always someone to put the pressure on, whoever it may be. So I think we're going to have more exciting races between now and the end of the season, but maybe in terms of a championship, it's a bit too late for someone to really mount a real serious run at him, given the gap that's now there.
Yeah, I think you'd have to see some DNFs or something from Red Bull, which, we just haven't seen much. It's like we've said a couple times before, Chris, it's like reliability is almost a non-issue in Formula One, it feels like right now. Not zero, but really low, especially among the top teams. So that's a pretty big lead. In fact, Verstappen's with 194 points and Leclerc with 138. And I gave out the phone number, and we have a caller. We have Bryn calling in, actually from Canada. I think he may be a truck driver. Bryn, welcome to the show. What'd you think of the race?
Yeah, good afternoon, gentlemen. Yeah, brilliant race. I thought Lando threw it away for not pitching early enough. I thought he could have won if he'd have pitted one lap sooner. But I guess that's payback for Miami when he got an advantage from the safety car. I would have liked to have seen Lando win again.
I think that, I think he didn't have a shot at that, or else if he did, it was right there on the edge, Brent. I think he was too late by the time he realized it, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if he did done it, I think the commentator said just one lap later or sooner. He might have had a chance, but like I think he said himself in the interview that safety car helped him, and now it went against him. So, yeah, it was a brilliant race. There was always something going on. I felt sorry for, was it Albon that got taken out by Sainz because he could have had points?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
But yeah, like normal, the rain brought a great race. So Thanks for you putting it on again.
Yeah, well, Bren, well, thank you. I appreciate the thoughts, and thanks for listening, and I appreciate you calling in. And if you do want to call, 512-643-5483. Chris, I wanted to ask you, I was looking through the constructor standings now because I was at 194, 138 Verstappen over Leclerc, 131 down to Norris, so tight there. But in the constructor side, Red Bull 301, Ferrari still 252. I mean, in theory, it looks a little closer, but the one that caught my eye, Chris, is McLaren up to 212. That's exciting, and Mercedes now at 124. So nice points from McLaren today.
Yeah, big time for them. They've made a big gain getting both cars kind of at the sharp end. Well, both teams have in that sense. The fact that Mercedes managed to do it with third and fourth, very, very strong outcome in that sense. I'm just trying to see. I don't know if this is going to happen now. We're trying to get a bit of a word with Toto, but I think he's about to disappear to a TV interview. I'm not sure if now is going to work timing at all when it's actual chaos down here, I'll admit. So I believe, it's photo time, and I'm going to wind on air work out. I think he's actually going on to Sky Germany, so I'm very much in the way right now. Do apologise.
All right, well, no worries, Chris.
If you're free now, I believe I'm second in queue. Everyone hearing live on air that I'm even letting Toto turn around to me and went, is it you or is it these lot? But I know how not to get myself smashed in the head by an umbrella. So I'm going to park myself right between him and his next port of call and hopefully grab at least a word with Toto after that. All right, so sorry that you all heard that carnage on the air.
That's all right, Chris. Let's take a call here. We've got Tomas from Long Island. Hey, Tomas, what'd you think of the race?
How are you? I thought it was a great race. Unfortunately, in New York, we got the race late live, but it was perfect timing for all the action at the tail end. The one thing I thought was great was Gasly getting a pass at the end. Love to know what the thoughts are on that, especially as they go into the end of the race, what that garage must have felt like.
Oh, what do you think, Bob? I see you smiling.
Well, all's fair in love and war and teammates. And I'm sure it was a satisfying moment for Gasly to make a pass on Ocon. But that's not the only garage, I think, up and down where there might be some interesting comments between both sides of the garage. One of those being Mercedes, where George put a pretty stout power move on team leader Lewis Hamilton. So they might have some things to say to each other. It's the name of the game. You're free to race, boys. And so nobody can expect quarter to be asked or given, especially when points are so precious. If Gasly and Ocon have never been on each other's Christmas card lists anyway, so I don't know that their relationship could get any worse after the Monaco massacre 2 weeks ago. So, I'm sure everybody is feeling pretty good about it, knowing that Ocon is out the door at the end of the season. Not that he's a bad guy. It's just he made some bad choices, and he's paying for them now.
Yeah. Hey, Tomas, do you have a favorite driver or team?
Newer to F1, following Ricciardo, so excited to see him getting into the points this week. A little frustrated that, the fall down the track from where I think he started fifth and ended in ninth or eighth. So a little disappointed there, but, it's exciting. I think as a newer fan to the sport, every week brings something new, and every week, you see something different on the track and a different thing to root for. So excited about the extension of my fandom, but do not have a specific favorite other than maybe Ricciardo a little bit.
Well, good. Sounds like you're just a fan of the sport. Well, hey, I appreciate you calling in, Tomas, and we will talk to you soon, and thanks for listening. Guys, we got to take a quick break, and when we come back, we got another caller holding, and we got plenty more about the Canadian Grand Prix after this. All right, we're still live on YouTube, Facebook. And Chris has dropped off. He may have gone to get an interview. That's great. Let's see what the boys are saying. All right, let's see.
And girls.
Boys and
Come
girls.
on, ladies.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Speak up.
Yep. Oh, Kevin Kelly said testing. Video was frozen. So.
Oh.
Andy P said he had to refresh. So, yeah, looks like everybody had to refresh to get it going again. But it seems like it's working again. We got Tom in Lincoln, Nebraska holding. We'll get to him. Yeah, maybe it was just a glitch there, a glitch in the matrix.
Yeah. I blame the Russians or Elon Musk. My TV seized up during the race. I went to another room and it worked fine. But
do you have Starlink or something
weird going on? No,
oh.
No. But that was weird, though. I mean, they're all in the same system, and yet one worked, the other one didn't. I don't get it.
Let's
That's what
see.
you get for buying 3 or 4-year-old electronics.
I was just checking driver of the day. We'll announce that here in just a minute. I'll give you a hint.
Good question. Driver of the day.
Yeah. The fans did not choose Max, so I'll let you know here and see what they say.
Russell?
Nope.
Norris?
Yep.
Because we know it's mostly Brits voting. So, I mean, you've got 3 Brits in a row there with Norris, Russell, and Hamilton. And then an Australian, which is almost a Brit.
Hi, this is Jay Leno from JayLenosGarage.com, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
John Massengale, Bob Varsha, and Chris Medland with you. Chris has dropped off to go get an interview, and we have a caller on the line. We have Tom from Lincoln, Nebraska. Tom, welcome to the show. What did you think of the race today?
Oh, that was great, guys. This is probably one of the first wet races I've actually enjoyed since being a fan, other than seeing George qualify in a Williams some years ago. But other than that, like a race like today is just it's exactly the example. You can't just look at the winner and be bored with that. There's so much action going on beyond. I'm a recent convert as far as a few years ago since the Netflix documentary. And I got to tell you, I don't even watch that anymore because the race is so much more exciting. The season is so much more exciting. I watch every race, listen to every podcast and every Speed City afterward. So I just, this race is exactly an example of that.
Awesome. That's great, Tom. I'm glad to hear you say that about the fact that you've been converted from not just the dramatic Drive to Survive, but the dramatic racing, especially this season, man. We've had a treat, haven't we?
For sure. Absolutely. And I guess my only question for you guys at the end was Haas, obviously, starting on the wet, they were hard charging through, and that was super exciting. And then, of course, fell back. So my question for you is, do you think that would have happened anyway? Obviously, yes, we're talking about Haas, but do you, in your racecraft, think that something like that would have happened anyway?
What do you think, Bob?
Well, it's impossible to say what would have happened. Obviously, the full wet tires were a big advantage in the early wettest moments of the race. Had it continued to rain or increase in rain, I mean, they'd have looked like geniuses, worked their way well up into the points, if not into the race lead. And then, you're playing in that situation. You're playing for somebody to bring out a safety car so you could get a quick free pit stop and then carry on from there in much the same way that we saw Monaco won 2 weeks ago. So, yeah, as we said at the top of the show, I think Chris and I disagreed about whether full wets were the way to go for Haas.
Because you hate it when I cut you off, but I have to because I've got Mike Krack in front of me here from Aston Martin. And this happens all the time, Mike. I cut off people in the studio, but I had to for you because
you owe me
double
so
points
many drinks
today and a really, really good performance from the team. How happy are you with that result, 6th and 7th?
Yeah, I think today we have to be happy. It's the biggest score of the season so far. 14 points for the team. It's a difficult weekend in terms of conditions. The track had been resurfaced. The radar was unsure. It was raining. It wasn't raining. So I think we didn't put a foot wrong in all over the weekend. And I think we can be happy about that.
How tricky was it to handle the weather? Because we're stood here now and it's raining more heavily again. I mean, it was sunny about 10 minutes ago when we came back out. But how do you judge that? Who do you trust when you're trying to work out if it's going to rain or not?
Yeah, that is very difficult because you know from the radar what is going to happen in the next 10, 15 minutes, but then you have also to think what is going to happen after that, because changing tires and you changing the wrong side, you have to come back again. So it's always 2 pit stops that you have to factor in. So we are fortunate that we have very good people in our strategy department that are on the pit wall and also back in the factory that they make these calls and they make these calls very well. Not only today but also yesterday in qualifying, which was key yesterday actually to move on. And it was the same today. Everybody thought, oh, why are they all pitting wet tires when it's drying out now? But as soon as the safety car went in, we saw that the shower was coming. So it would have been too risky to go on slicks at that time. So all in all, I think we can be happy with how it was handled. But also we need to look at, we would not have the chance to fight with the top guys today. They were a little bit too far, and that is something that we really have to work on.
Yeah, you were close to that by early this season, but and maybe brutal, you felt further away a few races ago. Have you closed the gap a bit, or was it track characteristics, do you think?
Yeah, I think everything is always track characteristic. You have circuits that are more suitable, circuits that are less suitable, and you see also like on tracks like Imola or recently Monaco, when you are a little bit less competitive, you are on the wrong side of the cutoffs. Yeah, and then when you start further back, there's no chance for points, and your main competitors are scoring heavily. So the key is always qualifying to have the track position. And then it's much easier to race, as we have seen today here.
Well, I know you've got to get a debrief, so just finally, of your drivers, Lance's home race, and he's performed well all weekend. Q3 for the first time here, I think, for him, and then points. How impressed have you been with kind of the form he's showing? Because I think he was level on qualifying performance with Fernando coming into this weekend.
Yeah, Lance is very calm. He's very self-confident. I think he has made a good step in terms of how he approaches races, how he approaches qualifyings, and we should not forget, there was a lot of stress around him this weekend with the home race, a lot of commitment, a lot of PR that you have to do. But he stayed cool all the time. When he was in the car, was delivering. And so I think we can be happy. We can be happy of how it went. I think, at the end of the day, where you rattle loud after the couple of first laps, this is also more or less where you're going to finish if you do the same. So I think 7th was a good result today. And with Fernando in 6th, we rounded up nicely.
Well done today, and we'll see you in Barcelona.
Thank you very much. See you later.
Yeah, interesting. I like what he said about Lance Stroll. He's calm and he's relaxed and self-confident. And it's kind of a conundrum for me because I look at all the interviews we get from F1 every week, and most of them are about a minute to a minute and a half, and Lance's average about 15 seconds. And that's with multiple questions in there. Sometimes his answers are 1 to 2 words. And I really can't put my finger on him because every time I think I want to count him out and say, oh, shouldn't be here. He frustrates me. He just pulls a rabbit out of a hat and has a great performance. He's been a little more consistent, it feels like, in the last couple seasons, but I don't know. I'm happy for Mike Krack and the team because they're not in that top 4, but they're well ahead of everybody else of the teams behind them. For example, right now in the constructor standings, Mercedes in 4th has 124, Aston Martin has 58, so half of that. But then RB with 28, half of theirs, and then Haas and everybody else with single digits below them. But Chris, what do you think about Lance Stroll?
It's interesting because being out here in Canada and talking to fans who quite often ask the question, he's not that bad, is he really? Like, what do you think of him? And it's the reputation he's got is what precedes him. It's like, as you say, it's that attitude problem. And I will call it a problem just because he can address that. Because there's times he's very engaging, very, very good, fun to chat to. I've been at events before with him where I've been like, where's this most days? just kind of show us a little bit more, give a little bit more, and you'll be surprised at the reaction you'll get. But he does give off that impression that he doesn't want to try, and then that gives off the impression that he doesn't need to try because of the team he's in, and therefore that kind of feeds that overall viewpoint and narrative. But I do think we see good performances from him often enough that say, yeah, he's worthy of a place, but he has to pull it out more regularly. And I think that's why it was worth bringing up this week. And you actually brought it up, didn't you, in our midweek show, John, that it was heading into this race. He outqualified Alonso 3 times and the 4-4 head-to-head. Yeah. Obviously, he's just dropped 1 behind. But this is Fernando Alonso. We rate him so highly, and Stroll has been now consistently getting close to him in terms of results. There's still big gaps at different times. Yesterday in Q3 was poor from him, but the rest of the qualifying have been good. Made up for it today, kind of doing what he has to do in that sense. And there's a very good driver in there. It's just whether he can bring it out of himself more consistently, and he's had plenty of chances to do that. So I think it's more, that people have short patience with him, and he needs to stay on it on this current form.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough thing for a young driver, especially who comes from great resources, let's say. An extreme case here with his father, Lawrence Stroll, owning the race team. And so we don't necessarily give him the benefit of the doubt. And he doesn't help himself by being, monosyllabic and so forth. He probably ought to have a chat with himself in the mirror and say, well, what if the rumors are true and my dad sells this team or has to sell it for whatever reason, and new management and ownership takes over, and then where am I? You got to be the whole package as a young driver. You got to be quick. You have to be incisive in your comments to your engineers. You have to do great PR, and you have to promote yourself to a large degree. I mean, you can't leave any link in the chain weak. Otherwise, you're just you're working against yourself. You're lessening your chances of having a long and successful career.
Yeah, and he's in the standings. Alonso's in 9th with 41, then Yuki in 10th with 19, and then Lance Stroll right behind Yuki in 11th with 17 points. But yeah, I mean, there's been times when he had a bad weekend, and I was like, I don't even know if he should be in Formula One. Is he just there because of his dad? And then he pulls out, he can clearly be fast, I guess is the bottom line there. So,
well, compare him to, say, Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo hasn't had results in quite a long time. And then he pops in a performance like this one, qualifying 5th and racing into the points, staying there, scoring points for his team. And everybody loves Ricciardo. That's the difference it can make, to show a little bit of your personality, as Chris says, to be at least pleasant, if not, entertaining. Not everybody can be a stand-up comic, but, just giving good answers. Alonso is a pretty good example of that. I mean, he didn't always have the best reputation, but more often than not, you're going to get a good, thoughtful response from Alonso. It may have a point to it that maybe we don't understand at the time, but, he knows where his bread is buttered, and old Freddie, as we used to call him, knows how to conduct himself as a public figure, as an athlete.
How was he at Lance's age, though?
Well, ask Ron Dennis.
Yeah, difficult to handle, I guess, wasn't he?
I've got
an answer for one of our callers who asked about the thoughts in the Alpine garage when that overtake from Gasly. Now, there's a bit of context for this that the team have circulated. And so firstly, there was mention, wasn't there, of a wastegate problem for Esteban Ocon on the grid. And there was one, and they managed to fix it in time ahead of the race start. And then towards the end of the race, Ocon had an energy management problem, which was impacting his performance. So the team says early on lap 68, Esteban was instructed to let Pierre by in order to give Pierre a chance to attack Ricciardo for P8, because the reason was Esteban was losing performance with the suspected PU issue. The team had confidence that Pierre could attack Ricciardo with DRS, because Ricciardo would not have DRS. It says that Esteban then let Pierre by halfway into lap 69 at turn 8, so over a lap after being asked to. By this time, it was too late. Ricciardo escaped too far ahead for Pierre to put pressure on. With Hülkenberg threatening behind, it was too risky to swap back positions. The important thing is that the team managed to secure the important double points. So that sounds like Ocon's going to be upset that they swapped positions. Gasly didn't get any further ahead, and then they didn't swap back. But also sounds like the team are unhappy the team were unhappy that Esteban didn't give up that place quickly enough to Pierre to have a go at Ricciardo. So still some politics going on back there.
Oy vey. Well, as Martin Brundle said at one point during the weekend about about Logan Sargent, he's basically been told this is not working out. And so, as Brundle said, he's racing for himself now. And maybe Esteban Ocon needs to keep that in mind, knowing that he's going to need a drive next year. There are, depending on how you look at it, 9, nearly half the field is unconfirmed for next year. Now, you could say, well, Lance Stroll is not unconfirmed. It's his dad's team. He's going to be there. But, officially, contracts are up and drivers have not been confirmed for next year, and there's 9 slots there. I'm not sure that Esteban Ocon's managers are advising him appropriately. And for that matter, Carlos Sainz. I mean, geez, the clock is ticking, Carlos. There's a lot to learn yet in this silly season. But yeah, Ocon is definitely racing for himself right now. I think it's fair to say.
Hey, Chris, one of the stories this weekend, you had a nice interview with James Vowles at Williams, team principal at Williams, talking about drivers and specifically Carlos Sainz. But it sounds like that he's gotten even more vociferous in his pursuit of Carlos Sainz. It sounds like it's like he's kind of doubled down, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. He publicly said, I think, to Sky, or certainly on an interview this weekend, that he would confirm that Sainz is his number 1 target. That's who they're after. But he wouldn't give any details on whether he thought it was going to happen or what Carlos was going to do. But yeah, he said that was his number 1 target. So they're pushing hard.
Yeah. All right. Well, coming up after this, we are going to hear from Toto Wolff because Chris just caught up with him a few minutes ago. We have an interview in the can. We'll play that when we come back. Back after these messages. All right, we are still live on the stream, and Kevin Kelly says, cheers, raise a glass to Parnelli Jones. Yeah. Gosh, how old was he?
Second that.
Yeah.
88, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking late 80s. R.I.P. for sure.
Nice guy.
Did you talk to him?
Great driver.
Did you talk to him, Bob?
I actually accompanied Parnelli to the Speedway for what was then thought to be his final appearance at the Speedway. Turns out it wasn't, but that's okay. I think it was the 100th or 101st Indy 500. And I tell you what, if you want to see the crowd part like the Red Sea, you walk in behind Parnelli Jones. Yeah, great guy. He walked me through the museum. We were shooting a documentary. He walked me through the museum and pointed out a bunch of his cars that he had loaned to the museum and told me stories about racing them. He was the right stuff, I guess you'd say, in so many ways. And a really gracious guy. Great family, lovely wife, 2 great driving boys. Of course, his son, Paige, his younger son, was horribly hurt with a head injury in a crash, and his career ended there. But PJ, his older son, was still out there getting it done. Yeah, great family. And he was, Parnelli, that is, the oldest living Indy 500 winner. I'm not sure who takes that mantle now that Parnelli is gone.
Hey, I wanted to mention, we had a regular, and Bob, you know him, and I know him, Paul Bryan. I knew he was struggling with some health issues, and so I just wanted to give a shout out to Paul. I'm not sure if he's listening today. He said he'd been listening and kind of been quiet in the background, but hope he's doing okay. But all right, we're coming back.
Yeah, I hope so too.
I'm George Russell, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. And we want to let you know a word from our sponsor. The Speed City F1 post-race show on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Stop today's most sophisticated cyber attacks at the office, the racetrack, and everywhere in between. Learn more at crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, Chris Medland caught up with Toto Wolff, who had a pretty good weekend, first podium of the year. So let's hear from Toto Wolff.
Inside with Toto Wolff here, yeah, out at the rain. And Toto, you definitely had the pace that showed you could have won that race, but should you have won that race, do you think?
No, I think we're not yet ready to win races. Maybe there was a few minutes that we were dreaming about it, that it was possible, but you need to keep keep both feet on the ground. We were racing with the front guys, and that's important.
And you did it with both cars. You got them both solid points. How pleased are you with the way the team executed in a chaotic race?
Yeah, I think there was more scope to make mistakes and get it all wrong, and we didn't too much.
And we saw a big step forward from you here. Well, but they've been coming. Is this a sign of what we can expect moving forward, or is it just a bit of a one-off, do you think?
Well, I hope it's a direction that is now correct. The cars seem to be much more likable to drive, and I hope we can pursue this in Barcelona.
Any nerves as well at the end there when George passed Lewis and then you let them fight?
No nerves. I've had much worse.
I believe you as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were all thinking of Nico and Lewis taking each other out.
Exactly.
When he said that.
You betcha.
Hey, Chris Medland, I hear your mic light up. You want to intro the Zak Brown interview you just picked up?
Yeah, I managed to grab Zak as he was heading out, and it was this crazy weather. It was not raining, then it was hammering it down, so we ran along in the pouring rain, and it's just stopped again. So apologies if this is a little bit haphazard. There's also a moment where Lando Norris is walking in the other direction, swarmed by people, so he doesn't actually see Zak. So it might get loud at the very end of this interview.
Casey, you ready? He's all right, here we go.
Zak, as we try and dodge the weather, you've done well to get a massive umbrella. Another podium, second place. Did the wing get away, though, with that safety car?
I don't think so. I think because there was another safety car later on. We wanted to protect Oscar, so we brought him in first. Guys were flying, did a great job. I think there was a couple different strategies that you could have gone with, and they all kind of netted out in the same place. So had there not been another safety car, maybe. But I think the second safety car would have negated any advantage or disadvantage from that first safety car.
Dare I ask, though, where did that pace come from at the end of that first stint when you guys suddenly flew to the front?
He was flying. I think he likes intermediates that become slicks because that's what the conditions were. So, great race. I think that was an awesome race for the fans. I know it was on pit wall. And let's see what the next race brings us.
How confident do you feel, though, now that you seem to be consistent at every track? Other teams are up and down a bit more. You seem to be right there in the fight everywhere we go now.
Yeah, team's done a great job with the car, and it does seem to be quick no matter what type of circuit we go to. So, what do we have? About another 15.
It's 15 races.
So, a lot of racing to go, a lot of different types of tracks, but we should be competitive, all of them, as long as we keep doing what we're doing.
And what's the target in those 15? Just wins?
Wins, podiums. And there's our boy Lando!
Well done, Tim, and well done to you today.
Yeah, thank you very much. See you later.
Oh, that's actually kind of a cool moment to get to hear him, interact with Lando like that,
Yeah.
Well, Lando, I don't think knows where it came from because he didn't look up at the time.
Yeah, I think it's important that that team bosses have that kind of relationship with their drivers. I don't see Fred Nazar doing that, but on the other hand, I wouldn't have expected Fred Nazar to get himself tossed into Monaco Harbor after his man won there 2 weeks ago. So it's a club, and it needs to be cordial.
Zak does have a new tattoo on his arm, courtesy of Lando Norris. He has the Miami International Autodrome penned on his his right bicep, I think, to go with the Monza one he got when Daniel Ricciardo won. So the more races they win, he's going to run out of arms, isn't he?
I was going to say, I remember years ago we were at the German Grand Prix and we had some incredible crowd shots, and one was a guy who took off his shirt and turned around, and he had a tattoo of each of Michael Schumacher's 91 race victories on his back. Oh. It was a real piece of work, let's call it. But fans can get crazy. So I think as the rate McLaren's going, no question, Zak's going to run out of space.
Like Chris said, art is in the beauty of the beholder, Bob. So you never know. But going back to Zach, every team principal, every coach of any team has a different style. But Zach's is working right now, and he clearly has a good relationship with his team, with the drivers, and so it's working, and it's fun to watch when it's working that way. And it's fun to watch Varsha. I'm sure not today, but leading up to today. So hopefully they'll get that turned around. Hey, Chris, we talked about it during one of the breaks. We haven't talked about it on the radio yet. Bob took him 3 guesses. Excuse me. Took him 3 guesses to driver of the day. If you haven't seen it, guess. But if you have, you can just tell us who it is.
I haven't seen it. And I'm gonna guess. I'm trying to think of where the fan base voting can go. I'm just wondering if it might be Norris. Lewis Hamilton?
I tricked you. It was Norris. Even though it did take Bob. It was Lando Norris, yeah. I could see that for sure, though.
Yeah. That stint
sure.
that we mentioned to Zach, that intermediate to kind of slick weather spell, he was just on a different planet. When that first safety car came out, his lead had gone out to, I think, nearly 14 seconds in just about 2 or 3 laps. And I do think they were just going for it at that point. They were looking at the weather. They were thinking, you know what, there's no certainty. So let's just get the lap time out of it. Let's just go as quick as we can and then react from that point rather than kind of hedging our bets and wondering and being in a kind of halfway house. And I think it would have paid off, but for the timing of that safety car. I know Zach says it wouldn't because of the later one, but even with the later one, they would have then been in such a strong position to pit if they wanted to pit for slick tires or whatever it may have been. And I just think he had a quick enough car to win from the front. So if he'd have been in the lead, I think he'd have won. But obviously, once you're not in the lead, look, Verstappen didn't disappear. The gap between him and Lewis Hamilton in 4th across the line was 4.9 seconds. He had enough to get away, but he wasn't in a league of his own by any stretch. So I think whoever was leading after that final safety car was winning that race.
Well, we have to be excited about this race. I'm just looking at the F1 graphic with Verstappen, Lando Norris, and George Russell on the podium, Red Bull, and McLaren and Mercedes. And I think this season, had it been George Russell on the top step of the podium today, I think that would have been some real icing on the cake. But I think you said it earlier, Chris, that Red Bull is really strong. And I'm just happy that we have a competitive season right now. And you know what? I'm going to have to give a quick shout out because it's popped up in my Twitter feed like 6 times now. Jamie Chadwick won pole and then won the race today in Indy Next. And for the Andretti team, what an awesome story that's being. You just seen a nice linear curve ever since she went to Indy Next, right? She has done a great job. So well, guys,
and that is a really fast, intimidating racetrack too.
Yeah. And
I thought she was the first female to take pole on a road course or street course as well in that level.
Yes. I thought you were going to say fast, intimidating driver because the first time I interviewed her, I mean, this was years ago, I thought she was just brilliant. Fantastic. Well, we're out of time, guys. Thanks, Bob Varsha. Thanks, Chris Medland. Jonathan Green, sorry you were here. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week on Wheel to Wheel.